The Queen's summons, the twin sons of Xylaris burned high in the sky, casting golden light across the sprawling alien city. Captain Daniel Cross walked through the palace gates, his boots echoing against the marble floor. Every alien guard he passed stared at him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Humans were rare here, and a human soldier in the Queen's palace was even rarer. Daniel had been summoned without explanation, only told that the Queen herself demanded his presence. He didn't know why, but in this world, such summons could mean glory or death. The corridors were lined with tall alien statues, each one carved with sharp features and cold eyes. The air smelled of strange flowers and burning incense. Every step Daniel took seemed to make the silence heavier. He could feel invisible eyes watching him from behind the walls. When he reached the great throne room doors, two massive guards blocked his path. Without speaking, they swung the doors open, and the sound of the hinges echoed like thunder. Throne room was vast, its ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Glittering banners hung from the walls, each embroidered with the sigil of the royal house, a silver serpent wrapped around a star. At the far end, seated on a throne carved from crystal, was Queen Saravia. Her beauty was unlike anything Daniel had seen. Silver hair flowing like liquid moonlight, eyes the color of frozen oceans. But behind that beauty was a sharpness, a cold authority that made even the air seem afraid. She did not smile when she looked at him. Instead, she raised a hand, and the entire room went silent. "Captain Daniel Cross," her voice rang out, smooth but dangerous. "You have served your people well, and now you will serve me." She motioned to an attendant, who stepped forward carrying a long, ornate scroll tied with a black ribbon. The attendant unrolled it, revealing strange alien symbols and Daniel's name written in bold at the top. "This," the Queen said, "is a mating pact." A ripple of whispers swept through the court. The words hung heavy in the air. A mating pact was not just a marriage. It was a binding political agreement. Once signed, there was no escape. Daniel kept his face calm, but his mind raced. He had heard of these pacts before. Humans who signed them became little more than royal possessions. The Queen's voice cut through his thoughts. "You will accept this honor, and you will stand at my side," she said. Her tone made it clear she expected no argument. The alien nobles in the balconies leaned forward, watching him like predators. Waiting to see the kill, Daniel's fingers twitched at his side. His instinct screamed to reject it, but he was surrounded by guards, and one wrong move could mean his execution, so he stepped forward, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The Queen's cold eyes followed his every movement. When he reached the bottom of the throne steps, the attendant held the scroll out to him. Daniel took it in his hands, feeling the weight of the thick parchment. The ink shimmered faintly as if alive. Somewhere deep in the palace, a bell tolled once, low and ominous. He glanced up at the Queen. Her lips curved slightly, but it was not a smile of kindness. It was the smile of a predator certain of victory. Daniel looked back at the scroll, the alien script twisting like serpents on the page. The longer he stared, the more his chest tightened. The pact felt wrong, not just unfair, but dangerous in a way he could not yet name. He imagined signing it and losing something he could never get back. He imagined chains that no blade could cut. The hall seemed to grow colder. The Queen leaned forward on her throne, her voice soft now, almost a whisper. "Sign, human." She said. For a heartbeat, Daniel didn't move. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. The nobles whispered to one another, certain they were about to see him kneel, but Daniel was not kneeling. Not yet, not ever. He straightened his back, meeting the Queen's eyes without fear. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a challenge. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly, as if she sensed he would not be so easy to control. And though Daniel did not tear the scroll then, the decision was already forming in his heart. One way or another, he would not belong to her. Not now, not ever. Whispers of rebellion. That night, the palace glowed under the light of the twin moons. its walls casting long shadows across the city below. Daniel sat in the small chamber assigned to him. The unrolled mating pact lying on the table, he hadn't signed it, not yet. The Queen had given him 3 days to prepare himself, though everyone knew that meant 3 days to accept his fate. But Daniel's mind was already working on something else, escape, or perhaps something far riskier. Through the thin walls, he could hear the footsteps of guards patrolling outside. Their armor clinked softly, like chains being dragged across stone. In the courtyard below, alien nobles laughed and sipped from crystal goblets, unaware that their empire was rotting from within. Daniel had seen it in their eyes earlier. Not all of them loved the Queen. Some feared her, some even hated her. When the door to his chamber creaked open, Daniel tensed, his hand moving instinctively toward the small dagger hidden in his boot. A young alien woman slipped inside, her pale skin almost glowing in the dim light. Her eyes darted to the corridor before she shut the door quietly. "You're the human they want to bind to the Queen," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel studied her face, looking for deceit. "And who are you?" he asked. "Someone who thinks you should live free," she replied. She told him of others, servants, minor nobles, even a few guards, who wished to see the Queen's power broken. They called themselves the Whisperers. For years they had hidden in the shadows, speaking in code, passing messages in the form of harmless poems, but they had never dared act openly. Until now, Daniel listened carefully. The Whisperers believed the mating pact was more than a symbol of control. It was ancient magic, binding not just the body but the will. Once signed, the human would obey every command without question. No memories of freedom, no thought of rebellion. A living puppet in the Queen's hands. The young woman leaned closer, her voice trembling. "If you sign it, you will never be you again," she said. "Then I won't sign it," Daniel answered. But she shook her head. "You don't understand. She won't let you refuse. Not in front of the court. If you tear it, she will kill you on the spot. If you hesitate, she will have you dragged to the altar by force." Daniel stood and walked to the narrow window, staring at the city lights in the distance. Every flicker of light down there was a life under the Queen's rule. How many of them had been forced into obedience, just like she planned for him? He thought of Earth, far away and unaware of the silent war happening here. He thought of the faces of the soldiers he had fought beside, men and women who had died for freedom, and now, here he was, a single human in the center of an alien empire, the only one who might have a chance to defy her. The young woman placed a folded piece of paper on the table. "This is where you'll find us," she whispered. Before Daniel could ask more, she slipped out the door and vanished into the shadows. He opened the paper. Inside was a map, drawn in thin, careful lines. It led to a place deep beneath the palace, marked only with a small symbol, the silver serpent, crossed by a single slash. Daniel folded the paper and hid it in his boot beside his dagger. His heart was pounding. Somewhere below, the Whisperers were waiting. And if their words were true, then the Queen's reign was not as unshakable as she believed. But the risk was immense. One wrong move, and the Queen would make an example of him before the entire court. He looked again at the mating pact on the table, the alien letters, glimmering faintly under the moonlight. It was a trap dressed in gold, and Daniel Cross had no intention of walking into it quietly. The pact's true purpose. The next night, the palace seemed quieter than usual, but Daniel knew it was only on the surface, in the shadows. Whispers carried through the air like the hum of hidden machines. He followed the map the young woman had given him, slipping through narrow corridors where the torchlight barely reached. Every step took him deeper beneath the palace. The polished marble gave way to old stone walls, damp with moisture. The air grew colder. It felt like the kind of place where secrets were meant to stay buried. Finally, he reached a rusted metal door marked with the symbol, the silver serpent. Crossed by a slash, he knocked twice, then once more, as the note had instructed. The door opened a crack and sharp alien eyes peered out. "You came," a voice said. and he was pulled inside before he could answer. The room was dim, lit only by small lanterns. Around a long table sat half a dozen figures, some alien, some human. Their faces were serious, their voices low. These were the whisperers, the hidden resistance inside the Queen's court. An older alien with a scar across his cheek leaned forward. "You need to know the truth before you face her again," he said. He slid a large, leather-bound book toward Daniel. It was ancient, the pages yellowed, the script written in a style older than the palace itself. "This," the man continued, "is the original record of the mating pact. From before the Queen's time." Daniel opened it carefully. Inside were names, dozens of them, each paired with a short note. Every name belonged to a human. Beside each note was the same symbol, a chain coiled around a star. "These were the first," the scarred man explained. "They signed thinking it was a treaty, but the magic bound their will completely. They lost their memories, their past, even their own names. They became the Queen's most loyal servants, until their usefulness ended, and they were never seen again." Daniel felt his stomach tighten, the thought of losing himself, his mind, his choices, everything that made him Daniel Cross, was worse than death. The young woman from before spoke up, her voice steady but urgent. "The Queen doesn't just want you because you are human," she said. "She wants you because you carry a rare genetic immunity. With it, she could breed a line of soldiers, immune to the bioweapons of her enemies. You wouldn't just be her puppet. You would be the foundation of her unstoppable army." The words hit him like a blow. He remembered the wars back on Earth, the weapons that could wipe out entire cities in minutes. If the Queen gained that kind of power, no world in this part of the galaxy would be safe. And his own body, his own blood, would be the reason. Daniel closed the book and pushed it back across the table. "What if I destroy it?" he asked. The scarred man shook his head. "The pact is more than ink and parchment. It's a living contract. The moment you touch it with intent to sign, the binding begins. The only way to break it is to refuse in front of witnesses, but if you do that, she will strike you down where you stand." Daniel's jaw tightened. He could almost hear the Queen's voice in his head, smooth and certain, telling him to obey. But he was done obeying, done being part of someone else's plan. The young woman stepped closer, placing a small round device in his palm. It was cold and made of strange metal, with tiny lights running along its surface. "This will disrupt the binding magic if you use it at the right moment," she said, "but you'll only have one chance, and if you fail, she will kill you before the court." Daniel closed his fingers around the device. Feeling its weight, it was small, but it carried the weight of his choice. If he succeeded, he could break not just his own chains, but perhaps weaken the Queen's hold over others. If he failed, his death would be quick, but at least he wouldn't die a slave. He met the eyes of every person at the table. "Then I'll have to make that one chance count," he said. No one spoke after that. In the silence, Daniel knew that the path ahead was set. 3 days, 1 pact, and a fight that could shake the Queen's throne to its core. The night before the palace was alive with music and lights, but for Daniel, the night felt like the stillness before a storm. In the grand halls above, alien nobles danced in shimmering gowns and polished armor, celebrating the upcoming ceremony. Below, in his guarded chamber, Daniel sat alone, sharpening his thoughts as much as the blade in his hand. The mating pact lay on the table beside him, its edges glowing faintly as if it knew tomorrow it would claim him. He stared at it for a long moment before turning away. Through the open window, the cool night air carried the scent of alien flowers from the royal gardens. Somewhere in the distance, fireworks cracked the sky with streaks of silver and gold. But Daniel didn't feel the beauty of the moment. He felt the weight of every second slipping away. 3 days had passed since the Queen's summons, and now there was only 1 night left, 1 night to prepare, 1 night to decide exactly how he would defy her. The small device the Whisperers had given him sat in his pocket. He had tested it earlier, feeling the faint vibration when it activated. It was strange, such a tiny object holding the power to shatter ancient magic. But timing was everything. Use it too early, and the guards would kill him before he could act. Use it too late, and the Pact would already have its chains around his mind. He stood and walked to the narrow mirror in the corner. The reflection staring back at him looked older than he remembered. The battles on Earth had left scars on his body. The wars here had left scars on his soul. And tomorrow, both would be tested. He imagined standing before the Queen, the eyes of the court fixed on him. He imagined the sound of parchment tearing, the gasps of shock, the roar of her fury, and he imagined her striking him down. If that was the price, so be it. A soft knock broke his thoughts. Daniel moved to the door, his hand brushing the hilt of his dagger. It opened just enough for the young alien woman, the same one who had brought him to the Whisperers, to slip inside. She looked around quickly before speaking. "Tomorrow she will try to break you before the signing," she said. "She will speak to you in the binding tongue. Once you hear it, it will weaken your will. You must activate the device before she finishes the first command." Daniel nodded, committing her warning to memory. "What about the guards?" he asked. Her eyes darkened. "They will move the moment you resist. We will have all eyes in the crowd, but you will still be outnumbered. Your only advantage is surprise." She placed a small piece of folded cloth in his hand. When he opened it, he saw the symbol of the Whisperers stitched in silver thread. "Wear it under your armor," she said. "It is a promise. You are not alone tomorrow." Daniel tucked the cloth into his chest pocket, feeling its weight against his heart. No, he thought, he was not alone, and if tomorrow went as planned, the Whisperers would not stay in the shadows much longer. When she left, Daniel closed the door and sat back down. He took a slow breath, focusing his mind. Tomorrow was not just about surviving. It was about showing the entire court that a human would not kneel, that even under the gaze of an alien queen, his will was his own. Outside, the music of the celebration grew louder. The palace was preparing for a union, but Daniel Cross was preparing for a rebellion. The breaking point, the throne room, was transformed into a place of dazzling beauty and dangerous power. Silk banners of silver and black draped from the high ceiling, swaying gently as if the air itself bowed to the Queen. Columns of crystal lined the hall, glowing with an inner light that made the marble floor shine like water. At the far end, Queen Sarathia sat on her throne, her silver hair crowned with a circlet of black metal, her eyes sharp as blades. The room was full. Alien nobles filled the balconies, their jeweled eyes glittering with curiosity and anticipation. Rows of elite guards stood along the walls, motionless but ready to kill at a single command. Musicians played low, haunting notes that echoed across the chamber like the sound of a distant storm. Then the great doors opened. Daniel Cross walked in, every step echoing against the marble. He wore ceremonial armor of polished steel, hiding the cloth of the Whisperers beneath. At his side hung his dagger, disguised as part of the ceremony's tradition. The small device rested in his palm, hidden under his sleeve, its cold weight reminding him of the moment to come. All eyes followed him as he approached the throne. Whispers moved through the crowd like wind through tall grass. A human standing before the Queen was rare, but a human refusing her was unthinkable. Queen Sarathia rose slowly, her gown flowing around her like liquid shadow. She descended the steps of her throne, holding the mating pact in her hands. The parchment shimmered faintly, alive with the ancient magic ready to bind him. Her voice was soft but carried through the entire hall. "Kneel, Daniel Cross, and take your rightful place at my side." The binding tongue slipped into her words like a hidden blade. Each sound pressed against his mind, urging him to obey. For a moment, his knees almost buckled. The magic was real, and it was strong. But his fingers tightened around the device. He activated it, feeling the faint hum of power pulse up his arm. The pressure in his head loosened, and his thoughts cleared. The Queen extended the scroll toward him, her smile calm, certain of victory. The crowd leaned forward, waiting to see him kneel, Daniel reached out, not to take it, but to grip it in both hands. Then, with one sharp motion, he tore the parchment in half. The sound of ripping echoed through the hall louder than the music. Gasps erupted from the balconies. Guards tensed, hands moving to their weapons. The queen's eyes flared with a light colder than ice. "You dare!" she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I don't kneel," Daniel replied, his voice steady and unshaken. Every eye in the room was on them, some in shock, some in awe. For the first time in years, someone had stood before the queen and told her no. Her hand rose, glowing with deadly energy. The air crackled with power. The moment of silence was gone. The breaking point had arrived. The queen strikes back. The moment the parchment tore, the throne room exploded into chaos. The queen's hand flared brighter, casting harsh shadows across the marble floor. Bolts of searing energy shot toward Daniel, the air hissing as they passed. He dove to the side, the blast striking the crystal column and shattering it into 1,000 shards. Guards surged forward, their armor clanging like war drums. Daniel's dagger was in his hand before the first blade reached him. Steel met alien metal with a sharp ring, sparks flying in every direction. 2 guards fell quickly, their weapons skidding across the floor. But more were coming, closing in from all sides. From the balconies above, shouts rang out, not just from the nobles, but from hidden allies. The whisperers revealed themselves, dropping down into the fray. Blades and strange energy weapons flashed in the torchlight. The music was gone now, replaced by the roar of battle. The queen descended from her throne, moving like a predator among prey. Her gown flowed behind her, untouched by the chaos. She raised both hands, and a wave of invisible force slammed through the room. Daniel felt it crash into him, throwing him back across the marble. He rolled to his feet, the device still clutched in his grip. The hum was stronger now, pulsing like a heartbeat. "You think you can defy me in my own court?" The queen's voice cut through the noise. "You will crawl before this day ends." Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Every step she took toward him made the air colder. Around them, the fighting raged, guards clashing with whisperers, nobles scrambling to escape. But for Daniel, the room had narrowed to just 2 people. He charged forward, blade ready. The queen moved faster than he expected, deflecting his strike with a sweep of her arm. The impact sent a shock through his bones. But he didn't stop. Strike after strike came, steel against energy, will against will. The floor beneath them cracked with each clash. Then, in a burst of speed, she caught his wrist. Pain shot up his arm as her grip tightened like iron. "You could have ruled beside me," she hissed. "You could have been immortal." Daniel met her gaze without fear. "I'd rather die free," he said. The device in his palm flared, its lights burning bright. A surge of energy burst between them, forcing the queen to release him. She staggered back, her expression flickering from rage to shock. For the first time Daniel saw it, a crack in her control. And he knew this fight was far from over. Freedom or death, the queen's stagger turned into a slow, furious rise. Her silver hair whipped around her like a living flame, her eyes burning with a light that seemed to pierce the soul. Around them, the battle in the throne room raged. The whisperers fought with desperate courage, clashing steel against the queen's elite guard. Every strike, every cry, echoed against the marble walls like the heartbeat of rebellion. Daniel kept his stance, the device still glowing in his palm. Its hum was steady now, feeding his resolve. The queen circled him, her hands dripping with energy that scorched the air. "You have embarrassed me before my court," she said, her voice low and deadly. "You have broken the ancient pact. For that, I will not just kill you. I will erase your name from the stars." Daniel's voice cut through the chaos like steel. "Then you'll have to erase every free human who comes after me." The words seemed to spark something in the watching nobles. Some stepped back, doubt flickering in their eyes. Others leaned forward, sensing history was unfolding before them. The queen struck first. A blinding flash of energy roared toward him. Daniel rolled aside, coming up close enough to slash across her arm. The cut was shallow, but the queen's gasp told him it was more than pain. It was shock. She had never been touched in combat, not here, not in her own throne room. The whisperers pushed forward, driving the guards back. One of them shouted, "Now, Daniel." He understood. The moment had come. He slammed the device into the floor, and a surge of light exploded outward. The magic in the air shattered like glass. The remnants of the torn mating pact turned to ash in the queen's hands. She screamed. Not in pain but in rage. The power she had held over countless lives flickered and died. Chains, invisible but real, broke from the minds of her bound servants. All around the room, eyes cleared, confusion replacing the blank obedience they had worn for years. Daniel stepped forward, his blade at her throat. The hall fell silent, except for the crackle of the dying magic. "You have two choices," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Free every human, end your pacts, or lose your throne here and now." The queen's gaze locked with his. For a long moment, neither moved. Then slowly, she lowered her hands. "I will release them," she said, her voice calm but laced with venom. "But you have made an enemy who will not rest." Daniel stepped back, lowering his blade, but never taking his eyes off her. The whisperers gathered around him. The guards who once obeyed her without question now stood frozen, unsure of where their loyalty lay. The throne room felt different. Lighter, freer, yet heavy with the knowledge that this was only the beginning. As he walked out through the great doors, the crowd parted before him. The air beyond the palace smelled of freedom. Somewhere far above, the twin suns began to rise, and in their light, the legend of the human who defied the alien queen was born.